You know, one of the worst things a man can go through is being in a loveless marriage. What's up, family? Welcome back. Today, I want to talk about how I can relate to Will Smith's experience. I got married in my early 20s. And when I went in your 20s, you think you got it all figured out. You think you have all the answers to the questions. You think you know what to do. Your parents can't tell you nothing. Nobody can tell you nothing. And I can honestly say that at that time, I would smell myself pretty good, and I was moving around and doing things because I felt I knew better. And I met my first wife. We dated for a while. Then we eventually got married. And things didn't work out the way I hoped they would work out. Throughout the marriage, there were infidelity issues. There were problems with trust. And rather than recognizing the red flags and the signs of that in the beginning before the marriage, I chose to ignore that and say, you know what? I want to see how this works out because I believe that if I love her enough and love on her enough, that she would change. Needless to say, I was foolish in that belief. So when I got divorced from that first marriage, I was destroyed. I was heartbroken. My confidence was in the pits. I was at my worst, mentally and emotionally. And being a man, I wasn't prone to asking for help. I wasn't excited about going out back into the world, being single. I felt like a complete failure as a husband, father, and a man. And I had no desire to talk to anybody, to try to work through anything with anybody else. I figured, because the way I was raised, I could figure it out myself. I could handle it. I could tough my way through it. I could just suppress the emotions down that I was feeling and push on, rather than getting mental help. Because mental help wasn't even a thing for me in that moment. I wasn't even a thought. Getting therapy, speaking to someone, getting some kind of counseling, it wasn't even a thought. I was like, you know what? No. Not realizing just how broken I was, coupled with a fear of being alone and having to deal with all that emotion and misery. I rushed back into the dating scene, met somebody else, and started another relationship. And I knew going in the risk I was taking and trying to start another relationship, but I was so focused on just trying to get past it and get over it that I didn't take into consideration how this would affect her, how her feelings might be taken for granted, and how I was going to be with her knowing that I was still dealing with all this extra baggage that I brought from the other marriage. I remember having a conversation with her during our, first interactions, and I told her that had gone through divorce and dealt with this stuff, and she was asking, are you sure you're over everything? Are you sure you're done with it? Are you sure that you are emotionally ready for a relationship? And I remember in that moment thinking to myself, honestly, I know I wasn't, but I chose to lie about it and say, you know what? Yes, I am. I'm over it. Convincing myself, not just her, but trying to convince myself as well that I was ready. So then fast forward, now I'm in a second marriage and we're going along and I'm trying to still wrestling with the stress and strain of dealing with the previous relationship, trying to make this marriage a better one, putting pressure on myself to not have another failed marriage. I found myself trying to fit into a mold that she had described that she felt was her ideal man. Knowing in my heart of hearts that I was not that person, but I felt like I needed to try to become that person. I thought that, thought of being married and being in a relationship required compromise. I didn't understand then what level of compromise I was accepting, but needless to say, that's what my mindset was at the time. The marriage goes along, I'm trying to fit in, and things don't work out even still. And we find ourselves in a situation where she's angry with me because I didn't live up to expectations that she may have had, or I disappointed her on different levels. I'm in my feelings because I am still dealing with the emotional trauma from the first marriage. Now trying to deal with the reality that I wasn't ready to get married. I shouldn't have gone to another relationship, and having to deal with all that. And now you also have kids involved, which makes things even more challenging. But there was a time towards the latter part of our marriage that we were just ships passing in the night. I would go to work, she was coming from work. We just pass each other in the house. Not much being said, not much intimacy, no kind of connection was there, and we just became almost roommates. And I remember the day when she came to me and said that she wanted a divorce because she just could not continue on. I remember sitting there, and the last thing I asked her was there any way this could be fixed? And hearing her say no was just so devastating to me. It caused me to get emotional. But afterwards, I felt relieved, because I realized that we were living in a loveless marriage. We were in a relationship that was not a relationship. We were just living in the same house, trying to maintain some kind of semblancy of connectedness and togetherness for the sake of the kids and for the sake of the outside world who did not know. So I understand to some degree when I watch a Will and Jada Smith going through the situation they're going through right now, where they're trying to figure things out. Clearly, there's all the nuances inside are different from what I experienced. But I can relate to the fact that this man, Will Smith, is trying to find a way to make this work, but he's doing it at the expense of himself. And that's what I was doing as well. It's interesting to sit back when you see something happening in real time and you're watching another person go through something you've been through, because in the moments that I was going through it, I felt so alone, so isolated. It felt like I was the only one dealing with this shit. And come to find out, I was not. So when I see Will and Jada trying to work through the situation, I can't help but flash back to the times when I was in bad marriages and had to face the reality that there's nothing that I could have done or can do to fix it. There's no point in maintaining face for people who don't matter. You think you're trying to hide it from the kids, you're not hiding it from the kids. The kids aren't stupid, they see it, they know what's going on. The people in the street also aren't oblivious to what's happening. You may think you're putting on a good face, but energy is a thing, and they can tell when the energy's off. Let me know in the comments, guys, how many of you can relate to what Will Smith is going through and understand the challenges that's involved in trying to maintain a relationship when you and the other woman aren't feeling each other. I think what's happening also is that we as observers are watching this man be belittled, be disrespected, if you will, and we don't understand why he's not setting boundaries. But as I look at that, I also flash back to the fact that in my own experiences, I didn't have boundaries either. When your self-esteem is so low, when your confidence isn't there, when you are trying to find a reason to exist, hoping that the woman you find or you feel is your person will look at you the same way in return, you will take just about anything they give, because you don't know any better. And I was in that same situation where I did not choose to see the forest for the trees. I ignored the signs that these women were not interested. It was a waste of my time. Why are we trying to keep this thing going? For what reason? Even in trying to go get therapy and couples counseling, it was obvious that there was no interest in doing that. That it was one-sided. It was all about the blame game between the two of us. It was never about solving the issues. And here, I'm watching a man who desperately loves this woman, trying to convince himself as well as her that he is worth her love in return. Now, people are getting upset and trying to figure out what Will is doing, myself included, like I'm just trying to understand his mindset. But recognize, people, Will is an active participant in this situation. He's not someone who's been drugged, hypnotized, or something like that. He is allowing this. He has accepted that this is the way he is going to be loved, and he has accepted this for himself, that this is the only way he knows how to be loved. He's not going to change that. He doesn't believe in letting that go, because he feels like what he has with Jada is a perfect fit for him. And at the end of the day, I have to respect that. I don't agree with it. I think he's making a grave mistake mentally and emotionally. But before the grace of God go I. I've been down that road where I was delusional, where I was making poor decisions, and people on the outside tried to tell me how to get out of it, how to course correct, make better choices, and I wasn't trying to have it. Losing family and friends behind trying to fight for relationships that were not worth anything is something that I have to live with every day. There's the collateral damage that's done from not being emotionally right, and how that cascades down to all through different levels of friendships and acquaintanceships and family and whatnot. It's frustrating. Now, as I was watching the various interviews that Jada had done on her book tour, a couple of excerpts kind of resonated with me, where she was talking to, I think it was Jay Shetty, where she was saying that she had made the mistake of seeking happiness in Will. And I immediately sat back, and when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's absolutely correct. We all make that mistake. Let me know in the comments below, fellas, if you can relate to the fact that we have made the error of looking to a woman for happiness, seeking to find that in someone else before we even have it within ourselves. And her point was just that somebody else cannot make you happy. That person can add to your happiness, they can enhance it, but to put that responsibility on someone else is unfair to that person. Especially when we historically don't tell them that that's what we're doing. And I know that my fellows can relate, having experienced that, where you place your happiness somewhere else outside yourself. And I think we as humans in general make that mistake. So I'm not saying that what Will is going through is something that can't be fixed, can't be rectified. My solution is that he needs to break it off, and they need to go their separate ways. There's nothing more to gain at this point, now that we know you're not really together, but you're staying together. Now you become a spectacle, because people are like, well, what is the point? And the more I thought about everything going on with them, I wondered, okay, so now knowing what we know now, what was the motivation behind the slap? Because if you're not with her, why would you bother embarrassing yourself on national TV in your moment of triumph? What was the point? And then again, I stopped and paused. I said, wait a minute. Let's think about our own situation. Think about where we've been. I thought to myself that was likely an attempt at trying to assert himself as Jada's protector. He was trying to show her that he could be the man she wanted, or that he thought she wanted. As we go forward, I saw Will saying he'll support her in everything she's saying and everything she's doing with this book. And like I said, I feel like he had to have known something about the book coming out. So we're all shocked by this news, but I don't think that he was unaware that this was going to be a thing once it came out, and that he made the choice to stand by her and support her regardless, as a way to save face. Now, what happens next, I don't know. According to what I heard in the book, if I'm thinking correctly, she said something about they were going to try to continue to work on this relationship and see what they can make of it in the future. Who knows? So what can we learn from this, gentlemen? What I will say is that the important thing to take away from this is that you have to know who you are, love yourself first, find and seek happiness within first, and do not try to find that externally. Don't put your happiness in the hands of somebody else and then get angry with them when they don't know what the hell to do with it. It ain't their responsibility. It's not their charge to figure out how to make you happy. But it gives us a chance, gentlemen, to pause and say, you know what? Zoom out and take a look at what's going on in your relationships and your interactions, and making sure that you are doing the best things for yourself first. Because, brother, understand that you're traumatized. We all are. We got a whole lot going on in this world today. We have a lot to deal with. It's a very difficult life for a black man out here if you're not careful with your mental health. Making sure that you address any issues, dealing with breakups, dealing with past trauma, making sure you're as right as you can be before you go off into another relationship. And when you get into relationships, you learn how to have boundaries. You learn how to say no and be okay with that. You also learn and understand that if you're not with somebody today, you'll get there at some point. There's somebody there for you at some point. Don't get so caught up in the emotion and the feeling that if someone decides they want to walk away from you, it's not the end of the world. You can only do what you can do the best you can, put your best foot forward and make the effort. That's all you can do. After going through my 2 divorces, I finally went through therapy, and the tools that I gained, the experience and knowledge I gained from going through that process was very liberating and helped me to better understand me, helped me to find the love and happiness that I needed to have for myself. I learned through that externalizing my happiness, my self-esteem, and in the belief in myself on other people was giving them power they didn't deserve to have. In order for someone to truly love you, you have to love yourself first so you can show them how to love you. If you enjoyed this conversation, check out this link here where we go talking about Tyler Perry, who has an important message for Black women. I'll see you there.